I always wonder, if Emma didn't exist, would my parents have loved me more? If I weren't the twin sister of someone so perfect, would I still be such a disappointment in their eyes? Since we were little, the differences between Emma and me were painfully obvious. She was the bright sunshine and I was just the faint shadow trailing behind. Emma had a sweet smile that everyone adored, a gentle voice that people wanted to listen to. She loved elegant dresses, her hair was always neatly styled, and most importantly, she always knew how to please our parents. And me, I liked ripped jeans and band t-shirts. I hated long, boring family gatherings where my parents boasted about Emma's achievements like she was the most precious gem they owned. I preferred sketching on crumpled notebook pages rather than sitting through the advanced classes my parents had mapped out for me. And because of that, I became a problem in their eyes. "Maya, why can't you be more like Emma?" Mom would ask me, disappointment heavy in her voice. I had grown used to these comparisons, but that didn't mean they didn't hurt. I just couldn't understand. Why couldn't I simply be myself and still be loved? I don't remember exactly when I started feeling suffocated in my own home, but I knew one thing for sure. Emma was the pride and joy, and I was just the misplaced piece in the perfect puzzle my parents had created. Emma had a clear path. Honors classes, outstanding extracurriculars, a long list of impressive achievements. She was in the debate club, surrounded by a circle of top students, always the shining star in school events. Teachers loved her, friends admired her. Our parents were endlessly proud of her. And me, I loved music, the raw energy of an electric guitar, the lyrics that spoke to me in ways no classroom lecture ever could. I loved drawing, messy sketches in my notebooks, even on the walls of my room when inspiration struck. I didn't want to live by the perfect schedule my parents had planned. I wanted freedom. But in their eyes, my version of freedom was a mistake. "Maya, stop locking yourself in your room, go out and socialize," Mom said as she stepped inside, her expression a mix of concern and disappointment. "I do see my friends," I replied, lowering my headphones around my neck. "I mean the kind of friends with a bright future, not the ones who just strum guitars and waste time on meaningless things." I clenched the pencil tightly in my hand. "So, if I'm not as good as Emma, if I'm not the kind of person you and Dad want me to be, does that mean I have no value?" Mom was silent for a moment before letting out a sigh. "Maya, I just want you to have a good life." "A good life according to who, me or you?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. She didn't respond, but I knew. In her eyes, the only path to a good life was the one Emma was walking. And as always, I remained lost in my own family. My dad always said that being different was a sign of failure. "To be successful, you have to fit in, Maya," he would often tell me, his stern gaze peering over his thick glasses. "No one wants to hire a misfit." That wasn't just advice, it was an unspoken rule in my house. Everything about me, my clothes, my interests, even the friends I chose, was scrutinized under my parents' lens. Or rather, under the perfect standard they had set based on Emma. Emma always looked polished, sleek hair, elegant outfits, a radiant smile. And me? I liked oversized band t-shirts, ripped jeans, and leather bracelets. I preferred doodling graffiti on my notebook covers instead of neatly taking notes like Emma. I wore my headphones all the time just to drown out the endless praise about her. "Maya, you can't come to dinner dressed like that." Mom frowned one evening as I came down to grab some food. "Please, at least try to look like a young lady." I sighed, setting my plate down. "Mom, I just came to get something to eat, not attend a gala." "But what if you keep going on like this, can't you try to be a little more serious?" I didn't answer. I just turned around and went straight back to my room. My room was the only place in this house where I truly belonged. The walls were covered with posters of my favorite bands, my desk was cluttered with sketchbooks and my electric guitar rested in the corner. Here I could be myself, without hearing constant comparisons to Emma, or reminders of how I needed to fix who I was. But even this room couldn't protect me from my parents' control. One day after school, I walked into my room and immediately knew something was wrong. I glanced around. Some of my posters were missing. The sketches I had taped to my walls were gone. My desk was rearranged so perfectly that it felt unfamiliar. I yanked open a drawer. My sketchbooks were missing. Heart pounding, I rushed downstairs. Mom was in the kitchen, stirring a cup of tea. "What did you do with my stuff?" I asked, my voice trembling with anger. Mom looked up at me, her expression eerily calm. "I just tidied up a little. Your room was too messy." "Messy? Did you throw away my drawings?" "I didn't throw them away," she said, placing her cup of tea down, her voice as steady as if invading my privacy was the most natural thing in the world. "I just put them away. Maya, you're grown now. It's time to start focusing on what really matters." "What really matters? According to who? You?" I clenched my fists, a lump forming in my throat. "Maya, you need to think about your future," Mom sighed, as if talking to a stubborn child. "Art isn't a real career. If you keep going down this path, you won't have a future." I felt my heart sink into a deep, empty void. "Emma has a future, right?" I let out a bitter laugh. "I'm the only failure." She didn't deny it. She just said one simple sentence, but it was enough to suffocate every emotion inside me. "We just want what's best for you." But what they wanted had never been what I wanted. And maybe, they never really cared to ask. I knew I didn't have a choice. Since high school, my parents had already decided that I would major in business administration, just like Emma. Not because I had any talent or passion for it, but because it was the right path in their eyes. When I got accepted into college, I barely had a say in choosing my major or my school. "Maya, you need a degree that has value," Dad had said, leaving no room for argument. "Art won't give you a stable future." I was too exhausted to fight anymore. In the end, I enrolled in the university they wanted, stepped into a program I had no passion for. But from the very first day, I knew I didn't belong there. The dry economics lectures, the endless discussions about financial markets, the soulless numbers, all of it made me feel lost. I couldn't understand the excitement Emma had whenever she talked about her classes. I couldn't picture myself spending my entire life doing this. But that didn't matter to my parents. The only thing they cared about was that I followed their plan. One afternoon, as I sat alone in the library, struggling to get through a dull textbook, Emma appeared. She placed a cup of coffee in front of me and took the seat across from mine. "Maya, are you okay?" she asked gently. I looked up and shrugged. "I'm fine." Emma tilted her head, studying me. "You're not fine. You hate it here." I let out a short, humorless laugh, not even bothering to deny it. "So what are you going to say? That I should try harder? That I should accept this because it's the best path?" She didn't answer right away. "It's not that I don't understand you, Maya. I know you're different from me. But have you ever considered that sometimes we have to do what needs to be done, even if we don't like it?" I clenched my pen tighter. "But this is my life, Emma. I don't want to live a life where I have no say." Emma sighed. "I just want to help you." "How?" "By convincing me to follow the path Mom and Dad planned?" I looked straight into her eyes. "Are you really happy, Emma?" She hesitated at my question. A moment passed and then she smiled. But it wasn't her usual bright, confident smile. "Happiness isn't always the most important thing, Maya," she said softly. "Sometimes, doing the right thing matters more." I fell silent, unsure of how to respond. After that conversation, something shifted inside me. I couldn't keep living like this. I couldn't keep letting other people decide my life for me. For the first time, I started thinking about how to break free from the plan they had mapped out for me. I had started thinking about how to escape their plan, but I didn't really know what to do. Until I met Liam. It was a sweltering afternoon. I was exhausted from endless lectures and decided to wander around instead of heading back to my dorm. I walked along a small street near campus, the kind with independent coffee shops and old record stores that business students rarely visited. The roar of a motorcycle engine snapped me out of my thoughts. I turned my head and saw a guy pulling up in front of a small repair shop across the street. Leather jacket, faded jeans, wind-tousled hair. He took off his helmet, ran a hand through his hair, and glanced around. There was something about him. The freedom, the confidence, or maybe just the way he seemed completely unbothered by the world around him, that made it impossible to look away. I didn't realize how long I had been staring until he caught my gaze. A faint smirk crossed his lips before he picked up his helmet and walked toward me. "You like bikes?" he asked, his voice deep, slightly teasing. I shrugged. "Not really, but I like the feeling of freedom." He chuckled as if I had said something amusing. "Freedom, huh? Are you looking for it or running from something?" I didn't answer right away. I wasn't used to conversations like this. It wasn't like the superficial discussions at university where everyone tried to sound impressive. His question actually made me think. "Oh, I don't know," I admitted. "Maybe both." He nodded as if he understood me better than I understood myself. "Name's Liam," he said, extending his hand. I took it. The roughness of his calloused palm was nothing like the polished, formal handshakes I was used to. "Maya." He studied me for a moment, then tilted his head toward his bike. "Ever been on a motorcycle before?" I shook my head. "Then you're missing out." Liam held out his spare helmet, his eyes glinting with challenge. "Wanna try?" I looked at the bike, then back at him. Everything I had ever been taught screamed at me to say no. This was a stranger. A motorcycle. A reckless decision. But there was a part of me, the part I had spent years suppressing, that wanted to scream yes. And for the first time in my life, I listened to my instincts. I slid the helmet over my head, climbed onto the bike, and before I could second-guess myself, Liam twisted the throttle. The motorcycle roared to life, the wind rushing past my face, the city shrinking behind me. I closed my eyes, feeling the speed, the vibration of the engine beneath me. Freedom. For the first time, I truly felt it. I didn't know exactly when my feelings for Liam became something more than just long rides on empty roads, or late nights by the river talking about dreams we had kept buried. But one day when I realized I couldn't imagine a future without him, I knew. I was in love. Liam wasn't like anyone I had ever known. He didn't have a long-term plan, didn't care about titles or achievements. He lived in the moment, taking each day as it came, as if it was all he needed. He worked as a mechanic at a small garage. A simple job, but one that brought him real joy. I admired that freedom, the ease with which he moved through life, while I had spent my youth fighting against the expectations forced upon me. And I knew my parents would never accept him. But I still tried. I brought Liam home one Saturday evening. As he stepped into the living room, wearing a simple button-down shirt instead of his usual leather jacket, I could feel the tension settle in the air immediately. My mom straightened on the couch, her eyes scanning him from his slightly tousled hair to his worn-out boots. My dad put his newspaper down, adjusting his glasses. No one spoke for the first few seconds. Liam smiled politely and extended his hand. "I'm Liam, nice to meet you both." My dad didn't shake his hand. "What do you do for a living?" he asked, his tone already laced with judgment. "I'm a mechanic," Liam answered without hesitation. My mother inhaled sharply, as if he had just said something horrifying. "Mechanic," my father repeated slowly, as if testing the word. "Do you have any plans for the future? A concrete goal? Or do you intend to just live like this forever?" Liam remained unfazed. "I love what I do, I'm good at it, and it gives me a decent life. I don't need anything more than that to be happy." That answer was the equivalent of blasphemy in my house. "You think that's enough?" My mom shook her head, her voice trembling with disappointment. "Maya, are you serious? You're willing to throw everything away to be with someone who has no stable future?" A slow burn of anger started rising inside me. Liam has his own future, Mom. It just doesn't look like the one you tried to force on me. My father stood up, his eyes hard. Maya, do you even realize what you're doing? You're about to ruin your life over a fleeting emotion. I let out a short, bitter laugh. Did it ever cross your mind that maybe all I'm trying to do is find my own happiness? No. My father's voice was cold. Because you're making a mistake. My mother started to cry, while Emma, who had been silent the entire time, kept her head down. I love Liam, I said firmly. And we're getting married. My mother's hands fell to her lap, as if she had just heard the worst possible news. My father slowly shook his head. If you walk out of this house with him, don't bother coming back. The words didn't surprise me. I had expected them. But expecting something didn't mean it didn't hurt. I turned to Emma, searching for something. Support? Comfort? Or at least some sign that she understood. But she only looked at me with sad eyes, saying nothing. Liam gently took my hand. Maya, if you're not sure. I squeezed his hand tightly. I'm sure. I took one last look at the house I had grown up in, at the people who had once been my whole world. But now, I was no longer part of theirs. Without looking back, I stepped over the threshold. And for the first time in my life, I felt truly free. My new life with Liam began in a small apartment on the second floor of an old building. It wasn't spacious. It wasn't luxurious. And it was nothing like the house I had grown up in. But it was ours. At first, nothing was easy. I left without any support from my family. My bank account held only a small amount of savings that I had secretly kept over the years. I got a job as a waitress at a small cafe in the city, nothing prestigious but enough to support myself. Liam continued working as a mechanic, taking on extra repair jobs in the evenings to bring in more income. We scraped by day, paying rent, covering utility bills, and learning how to live as frugally as possible. But strangely enough, despite the struggles, I had never felt so free. No more tense family dinners with my parents' judgmental stares. No more constant reminders that I had to live up to a standard I had never wanted to follow. I woke up every morning in Liam's arms, went to a simple but fulfilling job, and came home at night to hear him talk about the cars he had worked on that day. And most importantly, I had a real family. A family that didn't expect me to be anyone but myself. Liam's mother, Margaret, was one of the first people to welcome me with open arms. She lived in the suburbs, in a small but cozy house with a garden full of golden chrysanthemums. The first time I met her, I felt something different. There were no judgmental looks, no interrogating questions, like the ones my parents had always thrown at me. You must be Maya, she said with a warm smile, pulling me into a gentle hug. Liam has told me so much about you. I was taken aback by her warmth. It was nothing like the way my own mother had ever hugged me. Hers always felt more like a formality, rather than genuine affection. Over time, Margaret became someone I could confide in. On weekend afternoons we cooked together in her small kitchen, talking about everything and nothing. She never asked why I left home, never told me that I should go back. She just listened. And sometimes, that was all I needed. As the months passed, our lives started to stabilize. Liam worked hard and was eventually promoted to a management position at the auto shop, significantly increasing his income. We saved every penny we could, and after 2 years, we finally had enough to buy a small house in the suburbs. A place of our own, no longer just a temporary apartment. The first time I stepped into our new home, I stood in the empty living room, feeling like I was dreaming. Liam wrapped his arms around my waist, a soft smile on his face. Can you believe it? We actually did it. I turned to look at him, feeling the warmth of the man I loved. I can, I whispered. We built this life ourselves. The life I chose. I hadn't thought about my family in a long time. My life with Liam was too busy, too happy for me to dwell on the past I had left behind. But fate has a way of dragging back the things we try to forget. That day, I was making coffee in my small kitchen when my phone rang. I glanced at the screen. Emma. I hesitated. She rarely called me. Since I left, our relationship had been reduced to brief, polite messages. I picked up. Emma? There was a moment of silence on the other end before she spoke, her voice so tense that I immediately sensed something was wrong. Maya. Dad has been accused. I tightened my grip on the phone. Accused? Emma sighed. He's being investigated for harassing a student. The story has made the news, the university is looking into it and… It doesn't look good. I didn't know what to say. The image of my father, the stern, prideful man who placed his reputation above all else, flashed through my mind. I wasn't surprised. He had always believed his power was untouchable. But now, the truth had surfaced. Emma continued. Mom and Dad are in serious trouble. His reputation is ruined, and he's been suspended from the university. I tried to help, but my husband doesn't want to get involved. He said this could damage his career. I let out a bitter smirk. So you turned your back on them too? Emma didn't respond. I sighed. Why are you calling me? Maya. Her voice was hesitant. Mom and Dad need help. They have nothing left. I can't help them, but maybe you can? I laughed. A short, humorless laugh. You're joking, right? They disowned me, remember? They said I wasn't their daughter anymore just because I chose a life they didn't approve of. Maya, I know, Emma said softly. But they're still our parents. No. I shook my head even though she couldn't see me. They were only my parents when I followed the path they laid out for me. The moment I stepped off that path, they erased me from their lives. And now that they've lost everything, they suddenly remember me? Emma didn't argue. Maybe she understood the truth better than anyone. I took a deep breath. I don't owe them anything, Emma. I built my life on my own, without them, and I have no reason to go back now. There was a long silence on the other end before Emma finally exhaled. I understand. I could hear the exhaustion in her voice. Maybe, even if she didn't say it, she felt the same way I did. That all those years we spent trying to make them proud had only brought us pain. Before hanging up, I said one last thing. If they really need help, they can go to the daughter they always cherished. Then I set my phone down and turned back to my now cold coffee. Not a single trace of regret. 3 years later, on a warm spring morning, I sat on the wooden porch, a steaming cup of coffee in my hands, watching Liam play with our little boy in the yard. Noah, with the same bright blue eyes as his father, laughed uncontrollably as Liam lifted him high into the air, spun him around, and gently set him down on the lush green grass. We had come a long way since the day I walked out of my parents' house without looking back. It had been a difficult choice, but I had never regretted it. I had built my life from nothing, alongside a man who truly loved me for who I was, not for the expectations others had placed upon me. This small house in the suburbs was the result of years of hard work. Liam had continued working tirelessly, becoming the lead mechanic at the auto shop before eventually opening his own repair business. As for me, after working as a waitress for some time, I finally found a job I truly loved. Managing a small art shop in town where I could spend my days surrounded by creativity and talking to people who shared my passion. My life wasn't wealthy, wasn't extravagant, but it was genuinely happy. I still thought about my parents from time to time, but there was no more pain. I had accepted that they couldn't change, just as I could never be the daughter they wanted me to be. News of them occasionally surfaced. My father had lost his job, and my mother had quietly distanced herself from the elite circles she once prided herself on. Emma still kept in touch, but we avoided speaking about the past. I had learned to let go. Noah ran up to me, his tiny feet covered in grass stains. "Mom, look what I found!" I bent down, ruffling his hair. In his small hands was a delicate daisy, its white petals swaying gently in the breeze. "Oh, it's beautiful," I said, smiling at him. Liam walked over, wrapping his arms around me from behind, resting his chin lightly on my shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" I leaned into him, feeling the familiar warmth. "Just that. I'm happy." He gave my hand a gentle squeeze and kissed the top of my head. "Me too." I looked out at the garden, where the sunlight danced through the trees, where my son ran freely without a care in the world, where I had finally found the peace I once thought I'd never have. I had chosen my own path, and I knew I had chosen right. Maya's journey is a testament to the power of choosing your own path, despite imposed expectations. She walked away from a life that was mapped out for her to pursue true happiness, building a family founded on love and understanding. Her story reflects the reality of many young people. Those who bravely step out of their comfort zones, face loss, and ultimately find themselves. In the end, Maya not only found freedom but also proved that happiness isn't about perfection. It's about living authentically. What do you think about Maya's journey? Would you have the courage to give up everything to pursue your own happiness? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to follow the channel for more meaningful stories about life, family, and the choices that shape our destiny.